In last decade or so, I think there are few policies which has really taken the economic policy and the existing institutional frameworks in such a hard way as has this tariff taken. There are so many names to it: Trump tariff, reciprocal tariffs, and they really disturbed the entire trade governance system, from supply chains to competitiveness to tariff systems, the tariff framework. So everything was really put in shock. And so far, the best policy that has come as the best option is negotiating with the President Trump. That is the only policy that world is having so far. They were so surprising that there is no existing policy how to tackle these tariffs. The only way is come on the table. And interestingly, the tariffs has, as per President Trump, become the biggest tool to stop wars. This is, I'm sure Dr. Manzoor Saab will be guiding more on. This is a new dimension of using tariffs to stop wars. The discussion that we really wanted to bring in is a forward-looking. We know the impact so far. We know the world is struggling. We just wanted to take this horizon a bit in the long term. Is it a one-off sort of a knee-jerk response, or this can expand both in terms of more countries coming in using this tool, and in terms of the time horizon, it can continue as a tool. So the version is the longer term. So when you are bringing your reflections, see a longer term view. Secondly, it's more what needs to be done. The problem is on the table. Everybody knows what is the problem. What are the solutions? What needs to be done, and particularly in long term? And finally, the structure is that we will be dividing this discussion into three subparts. Everybody can participate in any or all three questions or the themes discussion that we will be putting on table. But remember, if you are taking more than 2 minutes in your every intervention, you will be taking time of somebody sitting next to your chair or in front of your chair. So be very precise, forward-looking, and solution oriented when you are bringing. So we have been joined by very renowned experts on trade. We have Mohammad Ashfaq Saab with us. We have Ali Kamal. We have Dr. Manzoor, who has been in and out. We have Dr. Safdar Sohail Saab also, and all of you also, Jabbar Saab also. We have been on the trades. So let me begin by putting the first discussion point on the table. What do you see the long-term implications or impacts of this approach of reciprocal tariffs, irrespective of who imposed it? And how sustainable, how responsive are the existing tariff frameworks that you think we can have? So we will have 25 minutes for this question, and then we can move to the next question. So your reflections in this first session should be mainly on this question: the long-term implications of reciprocal tariff. What are the scenarios that you see coming in the long term, and how you assess the existing frameworks that we have? So if I can open with the Dr. Manzoor Saab with you, and then we can expand. So just raise your hand whenever you wanted to come in. So please come in. So over to you, but I'll start my question with big thanks on behalf of SDPI and our partners to join us. So Dr. Manzoor Saab, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I mean, you gave a very good, a brief but very good introduction. So without getting into what the implications are and all that, I think I'll go straight to this, the first question: what do we do in the long term? And you made a point that we don't know what to do with it except maybe negotiate with President Trump. We don't know. Why? Why we don't know? Because such a thing never happened. I mean, okay, there was slight in 2000, Trump's first term, but that was limited to China and limited. But it hasn't happened. I think the last something similar happened was in 1930, with that Smoot-Hawley tariff act, when hundreds of tariffs were put. But then at the time, soon realized, I mean, the whole world trade, I mean, the world wasn't that interconnected that it is now. But still, unemployment, recession, depression, etc., everything happened. And then they realized that's not going to work. So they soon, at the time, calling it reciprocal means that we'll reduce them reciprocally if you reduce them. And since then, from 1930s, and especially after when GATT came into being in 47, 48, and it's one thing has been happening all through is tariffs going down. I mean, especially with developed countries, it started from there. Developing countries took their time because most of them were still not independent. I mean, they were colonial, this thing, and after they gained independence, there was something for maybe 10, 20, 30 years that we should first keep these tariff walls. We should work for import substitution and then maybe open up. But then some countries started realizing very early on that that's not the way, and let's move forward and let's do what developed countries, maybe they've taken 100 years to do it, but let's do it. And these Asian tigers were the first ones, and then Korea, and then Taiwan, etc., and then later China, etc. So all of them. And so it has never happened. That's the problem. Now, what do we do in the long term? First, I might have slightly different views, but I'll put them on the table. I think personally that these are not sustainable. I say it for 2 or 3 reasons. Not for any outside pressure, but because I see the pressure building within the United States. All surveys show that 60 to 70% people are not in favor of tariffs. That's one thing. And then you just saw the first sign of this election, this Tuesday's election. All Republicans were beaten badly. And one thing was this tariff. I mean, there were other things, but this was one of the things. And I think this is, and then the courts. I mean, the first court of international trade, they ruled against that the president doesn't have the powers. And then the Court of Appeals has also said that president doesn't have that powers. And now the Supreme Court started hearing this from yesterday. Yesterday, was it, a day before? And the early indications are that although the court is very much conservative oriented, but the questions the Chief Justice and others were asking that, they were more, how come the president is using this power? They don't have this. This is the Congress. So I think within the US, president might find some other way, but most of the tariffs that he has at present, if the Supreme Court was to rule that they're illegal, almost 60 to 70% of tariffs will disappear. And the problem will be with some other tariffs, with some specific items, with all those other things. But most of the tariffs across the board on various countries will disappear. And that's what I feel at present. I think I give an introduction, then maybe come back.
Thank you. I think the question, I'll again sort of another angle. Maybe these rates don't sustain, but the risk of policy will sustain. That if today America can go for this policy of reciprocal tariffs, tomorrow any other country can go for it. So this is the question, that this risk will be feeding into the system. So please.
Question. You see, when one country does something like that, first, the big trading in terms of economy is the US, the world's biggest importer, and China is the biggest importer. So these are the two big blocks, and then the EU. And I think China, for the time being, has been pleading for, all indications are that they don't want to, except they're standing up to the US, put tit for tat, but otherwise they have not, done this with any other country. So I think other countries, if somebody does it, I mean, they don't quite have that clout like the US. And seeing what happened to US, other countries would be very careful.
Thank you.
So I don't see that such a thing could happen.
Thank you. We have a raised hand from here, and then we have online also people joined by. So Professor Salim, I'll be coming to next. We have one participant from here, and you are the next, please.
Thank you, Sal sir. Actually, I will second you, sir, in this context that basically this is not the game of tariffs. This is the game of shifting power paradigm and engaging the world in to renegotiate the different factors in order to sustain the previous power that America has been doing. For this, who is paying the cost? The WTO, which was based on the consumer preferences, on the consumer priorities, that has been derailed. But I'm of the opinion that this is not for the first time for the United States of America. They have been derailing the international trade by having the large number of subsidies. So this definitely is a threat to sustainability in the international trade. However, the world will not engage themselves in this debate as everyone, since that is the main idea of the Trump government to sustain, regain power and re-engage the world. So this would not have impact the rest of the world, and I think this turbulence will remain for some time, but will not sustain. Thank you.
Joint Chief Economist, Planning Commission. If I can come to know Professor Salim. Professor, if you are there.
Yes, can you hear me? Good morning.
Yes, we can, please.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for
the
inviting
consensus
me.
here in the room is coming that don't worry. I mean, there's nothing to worry about tariffs.
No, of course we are worried. I just landed a few hours back after a very long travel from Europe. So I may not be able to stay for the whole session. So that's why if you could allow me 1 or 2 minutes extra so that I can actually try to share my views, Dr. Sajidev.
Sure, please, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, sure. No, I think your question, and first, of course, thanks to SDPI for inviting me to this excellent workshop or session. I think your question is extremely important. But the way I see this whole thing is that we are actually moving from a kind of rules-based global order or trading order to more of a deals-based trading order or global order. So now the problem is that, and this Trump tariff is an indication of that. And this is I would say, the best indication of this rules deals-based. So the countries, whoever can make a good deal with US, they can think that they are in a better position. But the challenge is for a country like Bangladesh is that this pressure is not only coming from US now, the pressure is also coming from EU. EU very recently, just a couple of days back, they have indicated very strongly to Bangladesh that, look, the way you have given privileges to US, we also want the similar privileges. Like Bangladesh has committed that Bangladesh would buy Boeing from US. Then EU is saying that, okay, you will have to then purchase Airbus from us, or various other commodities they have promised to give concession to US. So I think all these things are putting countries like Bangladesh into a situation, I would say kind of a battleground for big powers, where you try to make deals, but at the end, I fully agree with my colleagues or the past speakers that this system is not sustainable. This will create more instability and inequality, global inequality, because it will force the countries in southern part to compete against each other to make deals with the bigger powers. I don't think this is actually going to last. So what are the implications for exporters like from countries like Bangladesh? I think the challenge is now, even before this Trump reciprocal tariffs era, the exporters from Bangladesh or even from Pakistan or even from other countries in South Asia, they were seeing that there is a country, there is a world outside of their country that where if you can enhance your domestic competitiveness, then you can actually increase your export. Now that kind of certainty is evaporating, because even if you want to increase your competitiveness, the global order has become very uncertain. So I think there lies the biggest challenge for the policymakers. How the policymakers would be they would be convinced that there is a need for important domestic reforms to enhance the competitiveness. So I think we need to rethink, we need to step back and refocus our whole attention on, again, on building resilience. And there I see the huge importance of, again, coming back to the old, very old kind of issues which we ignored, that we actually did not pay attention to our trade and investment reform, especially in countries in South Asia. We still maintain high tariffs, para-tariffs, non-tariffs, serious problems of trade facilitation, regulatory environment, business environment. I think this is a high time now where we should look back and take corrective measures to correct our domestic front, to get prepared for the new phases which are coming up. I'll just end by saying that in South Asia we know that we are the least integrated region in the world, and we have very weak integration with the regional value chain and global value chain. But I see the huge opportunity where countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, and other South Asian countries to put the best effort in this turbulent time to go for more South-South cooperation, to integrate more with the larger Asian integration process, and find innovative ways how we can actually go for deeper integration in South Asia. I'll thank once again, Doctor, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor. So we have 3 raised hands. If I can start from that extreme, yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. The reason I believe why economies, especially the smaller ones, are ousted in today's tariff framework is because of the emerging emphasis on sustainability standards internationally. Smaller economies are finding it increasingly difficult to comply with these international standards, and mainly the reason being the advanced technology requirements. So I believe if the developing countries come together and they focus on establishing their own sustainability standards, that would really help them to negotiate the trade agreements. Because what's really happening is, because the developing countries cannot comply with these requirements, the countries are negotiating one-on-one. So US, China, jitni bhi developed countries hai, wo isliye ye kar pa rahi hain because our countries, the South Asian countries especially, they are unable to comply with the sustainable requirement. That's my take on it. Thank you.
This is a good point coming together. So if I can move from this, then this. So I'm just taking the order of raise hand. Ali, if you can come in on this question, particularly. First question.
Of course. So as Salim has already mentioned, the rule-based, we have moved on from that, from multilateralism to bilateralism. And whenever we talk about the Trade Theory 401, country like US can manipulate in their favor as a big country, that they may change the tariff and move terms of trade in their favor. So the bilateral escalation that have started, definitely, again, I reiterate all the 4 panelists that it creates volatility, uncertainty, that affects the long-term stability. The point is that tariff and the counter tariff, which we are looking at after US has announced a few months ago, it raises the production cost of the developing countries as well as the European countries as well. Then it erodes the cooperative overall spirit, the bilateralism of this kind of sort. I think I would go with that lady, that we can have a bilateral, regional blocks. So that's the second best solution, not the first best solution after multilateralism. And by doing this, we may have some kind of sustainability within the regional blocks. So Salim Saab, let's revive SAFTA again. Thank you.
And I think this is exactly the point that I was trying to make. When we say that there are no long-term implications, when we say that tariffs are not sustainable, if we move to regional blocks, this is a very long-lasting implication from a global trade system to regional block. And that is what I am mentioning. That even if the tariff rates don't sustain, the divide they will be creating, the implications they will be making, do they have any long-lasting impacts? So if you can structure your thoughts from this perspective, and that's, I think, one very clear example coming, that maybe a regional blocks for intra-regional trade are the best strategy. So now you are compartmentalizing the global trade, and that is a big long-lasting impact. So if you can go there, so please you introduce yourself, and then yes, and then the next one. And then I'll also be coming to our colleagues from Saudi. Nepal is doing excellent work on trade always. So Dr. Paras and colleagues here, we will be coming to you. And then I'll going to later after Saudi to Dr. Safdar Sohail also we have with us. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I partly disagree with the discussion because there is no long-term impact of these tariffs. My wondering is that this tariff do two important things. First, it is bilateral. So asking for each country. So there is no collective discussion. There is no collective thing happening. Second, it's create uncertainty. 1 month before something else, 2 months after that, something else. And uncertainty is the worst thing for the investment. So what I'm thinking, whether this approach is stay here or not, its footprint on the global trade will stay here. And it's also changing the way FDI is operating, is also changing the way the investment is operating. So it is not something it's happening and there is no implication. It's a very strong footprint on the trade and other things. So because it's a geopolitical thing. Second, while we are saying a reciprocal tariff, this is the first time we are discussing more the role of trade deficits. These tariffs are not based on the tariffs. They are based on trade deficits. So we need to think about the globalization phase which we experiences generated a lot of gainer and loser in terms of trade deficit or surpluses. Countries like Pakistan and others have deficit while others have surpluses. So which is also not sustainable. So we need to think about it, how these kind of things or these kind of development can be bring into the discussion. And from your regional block or regional, on the paper, it looks very good. But if we look the Pakistan reality, then it's not sounds so good. We need to, for Pakistan, we need to think about how to fix first our own economy, our own challenges. And I have a list of things we can do with our tariffs. So I think I stop here.
Please do keep us giving if you have some bullet point recommendations. We won't stop you for more 30 seconds. If you anybody please can come in. So if you can move to our next colleague, please.
Thank you very much. Just continuing the discussion, I guess the biggest impact of this tariff turbulence is the uncertainty, which is of course undesirable for any single economy or for global economy. I just want to put the situation in a different perspective. So, for example, we got 19% tariff from US, which is the largest export destination for Pakistan. But if we kind of see it differently, this 19% would be equivalent to just 3% of tariff across all destinations. So it's just 3%. But if we break the trade competitiveness into 3 segments, like at factory, like all goods you are producing with minimum cost and highest quality, and then moving from factory to border, the logistics and all these things, and then tariffs come the third part, the cross-border thing. So I guess for Pakistan and also for Bangladesh or developing countries, the major policy action lies within the country, like making the production cost low and making the logistic and so on. Because as I said, this 19% we are focusing too much. Of course, this is very important, but this is really one small part of the kind of incompetence or inefficiency we are facing. And that's also important because it's not only tariffs, there are other things emerging like carbon border adjustment mechanism and so on. So the solution are kind of the strategy that lies from the production process towards the border and cross-border, not really like focusing on the cross-border.
Thank you. If I can come, colleague from Sauti, and then to the Paras, if you can come in. The question was before you arrived, what are the long-term implications of this tariffs? And I think we need to differentiate, and again, with the fear of reiterating. The rate may not sustain, but the risk of tariff deficits, reciprocation will sustain or will remain there. So that is the question. How do you see how Nepal sees it? Over to you.
Thank you. It's a very, timely topic. I mean, talking about the uncertainty, I fully agree with all the other participants about uncertainty. And even when China joined the WTO, and China is important because, if China had not joined the WTO, for example, or if its exports had not increased, perhaps this situation would not have arisen. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't have joined the WTO, but at the crux of the matter is geopolitics, right? So when China joined the WTO, it's not that America lowered its tariffs effectively for China as such. It's just that certainty was introduced, right? America could not arbitrarily increase tariffs because of WTO rules, and hence that certainty led a boom in Chinese exports. Hence the importance of certainty, or in this case, uncertainty. And Trump's reciprocal tariff formula is such that there is a built-in mechanism whereby the tariffs will shoot up if we have a surplus. For example, Nepal was in a way full of euphoria when the Liberation Day tariffs came, right? At least the media saw it that way, that we were subject to 10% tariffs versus others, right? 30%, 40%, and so on. And we happen to have a kind of a deficit with the US. But if you go back 8-9 years ago, we still had a surplus, right? Those were the garment boom days, particularly until 2005. So if we utilize these tariffs, right, it's still 10%. And if our exports increase, and then within a short margin, we could have a surplus. And then the built-in mechanism is such that, tariffs may increase again. And this has also been a kind of a reality check in the sense that although we have a 10% tariff versus additional tariff with the US versus say 19% for Pakistan, right, or 50% for India, 19% for Bangladesh, there are sectors, for example, in the garment sector or the carpet sector, where industrialists have been documenting that there is an intrinsic cost disadvantage because of other competitiveness factors of at least 25%. So it means that we need to beat that, cost disadvantage in the first place before we can utilize this, tariff. So domestic reforms in terms of building productive capacity, supply side, has also hit home in this context. And one often neglected implication of this US tariffs is that even if, although the matter is sub judice and the courts there rule that these tariffs are illegal, there are at least two implications. One is that the US since 2020 has not restored the GSP, for all developing countries as well as least developed countries. And about 12% of Nepal's exports to the US are potentially eligible for the generic GSP. For example, GSP that Pakistan or India or Sri Lanka enjoy. And about 8% of our exports are under the Nepal Trade Preference Program that it had granted to us in the wake of the devastating earthquake of 2015. Now, in this protectionist climate in the US, it's very unlikely or almost impossible that GSP, which was suspended in 2020, will be restored, or the Nepal Trade Preference Program, which had to be passed by Congress. It's highly unlikely that Mr. Trump will take this preference for extension to the Congress. So this is one implication. Regardless of whether these reciprocal tariffs remain or not, GSP preferences and Nepal-specific preferences it had been providing will not, and that's actually more important, for certain countries. And another implication is with regard to going forward, sourcing of inputs also, right? In the days to come, when we negotiate free trade agreements, right, or even under the unilateral trade preferences provided by the US or even European countries, China might be a factor, right? There might always be rules of origin, or it may be made more stringent, whereby we are not allowed to source certain inputs from, for example, China. If we get GSP plus in the European Union, for example, after LDC graduation, we might have earlier entertained the idea or hope that perhaps if under rules of origin, or China is not part of the cumulative, provision, perhaps they will give us a derogation for a while. That was a kind of hope in the past. Now, because of the, I would say, highly charged geopolitical times, it's unlikely these days that they will allow that to happen. And that's one implication, going forward, regardless of whether reciprocal tariffs remain or not. Another point is that with regard to human rights, governance, democracy, and so on, these are very good concepts. I fully support them. However, there is a lack of a kind of a universal definition or consensus on these issues. Now, these can emerge as stringent non-tariff measures in the days to come, particularly in the developed world, because of these, geopolitical tensions. And again, in South Asia, of course, ideally, if South Asia was as integrated as, say, ASEAN, for example, we have just 5% interregional trade versus 25% in ASEAN, then perhaps this external shock coming out of the region could have been partly mitigated, right? But that's the reality what we have. But what we can do is explore bilateral channels also. For example, there's a huge potential for Nepal to export certain things to Bangladesh and import from Bangladesh, which is just, let's say, 54 kilometers away. Of course, we have to transit to get to Bangladesh. We are under negotiations for a for a preferential trade agreement with Bangladesh, for example, right? But that has been on hold because we have to give something. And this is a time when we need to do our homework, all countries, and decide that it takes two to tango, right? We need to give certain concessions even to our partners within the region to get something, right? So prioritize products in which you are willing to give some concessions so that we will get concessions in return, so that when there are external shocks as these, it will be partly absorbed. And so, example, if Nepal and Bangladesh could do something, and it's a very positive development that I've observed in the last 1 year, that at least as an observer and a well-wisher of both Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all South Asian countries, that ties between Bangladesh and, for example, Pakistan have dramatically, improved. For example, cargo shipping has resumed, right?
Yes.
And then visa-related issues have also further improved. And if these two countries also can explore, bilaterally trade, and we also can explore bilateral trade, and perhaps one day, hopefully, we can come together as a region. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. If I can go to Dr. Zainab, then I'll be taking just 4 more comments on this question, and then I'll be moving to the next question. You can club your thoughts there as well. But if Dr. Zainab, then Safdar Sohail Saab, and then I'll see.
I just wanted to say that this has created just a situation that when America sneezes, the whole world catches the cold. So the tariffs that has applied by USA right now, it has definitely has, if I talk about the risk perspective, for a risk for not only for the China and the major trading partner, but also for the smaller trading partners of the USA and across the world. So it will not has a risk of just moving from multilateral to bilateral, but also we are moving towards a kind of situation. We are going back to the mercantilist era, where we are protecting our domestic industries more and we are favoring the exports more than the imports. So we have to think about that beyond US tariffs, what are the possible strategies that we can do? And the implications will not be only the tariff rates, but also the bargaining power. So the trading partners which have more bargaining power and retaliation power, their implications will be much lesser as compared to the countries like Pakistan, who do not have much bargaining power with the USA. So we have to explore more options for trading, just like other colleagues have already said that. So I will not, take time on those. But the important thing I would like to say here is that long-term implication for WTO. The
Yes.
silence of WTO is quite disturbing, not only for the developing countries, but also for the European countries as well. So it has to take a active role, in order to make it realize that there is a lot violation of a lot of rules of the WTO.
So next question, we are coming there. Dr. Sohail, if you can come in, and you have heard the questions and discussion as well. So if you can, but we are left with 45 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, for choosing this topic for this roundtable discussion, which is obviously very important and rich discussion taking place. I'll simply add at this stage, we have the other rounds coming up also, that a lot depends on our assumptions regarding the goals of US. There are stated goals, and then there are real goals, from rules to deals, as Salim has also said. That is fine, but I personally think that US is thoroughly revising its economic statecraft, bringing in national security as a tool to create policy space, which is being challenged also, which is forcing all the countries which are on the receiving side of their economic statecraft to revamp their own economic statecraft. That is, in case of Pakistan, let's say we focus more on that. As we negotiate with the Americans, our negotiations have not been very difficult. And one reason is that we are in such a geostrategic moment that things are not made very difficult for us. And as a country, we have been facing these positive or external shocks. 1 year into our independence, we are importing 2/3 of our imports from India, and they put a ban on exports. We didn't even have a central bank at that time. We had CPAC, where we were very happy that the geostrategic factor is now being translated into economic openings. Having said that, I think the Americans are forcing everybody to look at the traditional way of valuation of exports. Now, Salim has said that we used to think that domestic competitiveness is equal to international demand, every other thing equal. Now that needs to be revisited. So our old tools of analysis for developing a trade policy, many of them have become obsolete. Like terms of trade, you cannot no more use that for your planning. So it is much more complex now, but at the same time, the major question that we need to ask, and I stop here, is that what is the role of exports in our national strength? And what is our national interest in exporting? Would we export for earning foreign exchange, or would we export to put more value in our human and natural resources? And what is the best way to gain the value captured through exports? And if that is not happening, then revisit critically our own policies. We all know that we're talking about the region. Pakistan has been an outlier in terms of globalization. Now, have those policies of globalization helped us gain more value captured through our exports or not? So I think these are more fundamental questions that we need to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is really, really good to see that participants are keeping an eye on my mic when it gets red. So thank you so much. I'll be coming, you can club in the next round. So if I can take some comments from Mohammad Ashfaq Sir, Joint Secretary Commerce. Sir, thank you so much
Thank you,
for
sir.
joining. And it was very rare to see that a Joint Secretary coming before the moderator even in the session. Really obliged,
Thank
sir.
you very much, sir. As a person directly responsible for the tariff policy of Pakistan, I would like to hear more from the participant rather than sharing my thoughts. But let me give you a quick roundup. My senior, Dr. Safdar Sohail Saab, Dr. Manzoor Saab, they are sitting here. And I tend to agree with Dr. Safdar Saab that we need to look into the whole paradigm of economic development through, exporting goods with, large volumes and quantities and values. One thing which we actually forget when we talk about the geopolitical scenario, that it is also about the geoeconomics as well. The system of exporting everybody else and importing by only one country, that system was not, meant for sustainability as well. So it cannot happen that every other country will try to export and try to import less and export more, and then only one country will be, ready to absorb all those exports from all parts of the world. So that was an unsustainable situation, and it was sustainable to the point when the United States was thinking that it is beneficial for their own economy. So the WTO architecture or the Bretton Woods systems or, all these things, they were actually created to keep to give the upper hand to the West or to the Americans or to the Europeans. And since that system started collapsing, and people or some countries, I would say, were able to exploit that system and found loopholes in the system, and then they were, coming out of that behind the curtain and, taking the lead role. For example, the Chinese share in the manufactured goods in 2000 was around 6 to 7%. Now in 2030, they will be manufacturing 45% of, the world's total manufactured goods. So that is actually giving nightmares to those who are at the receiving end of this development. And they are now bent on changing the rules. WTO, somebody said that we were talking about that later on, but WTO is not doing much because WTO itself is the creation of, the GATS agreement, and then Uruguay round, and that is based on the principles that export is always good, and you should, integrate your economies. Offshoring is also good. The real-time inventories, cutting cost, integration, interdependence, globalization, and then suddenly somebody talking about the hyper-globalization. So that hyper-globalization concept is, when they're starting about that, so at that point of time, people starting realizing, and it is not for the first time I read this book of, which I'm very fond of, Dr. Joseph Stiglitz wrote up a very famous book, Discontent of Globalization. Then another, Harvard economist, Danny Roderick, Straight Talk on Trade. And then these are actually the mainstream economists, unlike the heterodox economists like Ha-Joon Chung, Bad Smarten, and, Kicking Away the Ladder. So those people actually discovered this beneath the surface discontent with the globalization, and somebody started later on that trade wars are actually class wars. So and a famous economist wrote a book on by this title that certain class in the developed and developing country, they are actually pushing this hyper globalization. So I would tend to agree with those participants who think that things will not remain the same. Risk has obviously increased, and वो जिसको कहते हैं ना जाका खुल गया है. So nobody was earlier talking about tariff that it is untouchable and it is sacrosanct and it will go down and tariff cannot be imposed and tariff cannot be raised. So that cannot be increased. So that barrier has now been broken, and now the game will not be the same in the future.
Right. This is very important, I think, point, and also Dr. Safdar mentioned towards that what will be your criteria? I mean, if terms of trade are no more there as an indicator to achieve the moment, as the doctor from Dr. Paras also mentioned, that you are safe if you are in the deficit. The moment you are in a surplus, you have it. So you have a big choice, either to stay always in deficit. So that is the kind of, and I think the one key term that came across this table is the uncertainty that has been created, the risk that will be into the lines there. So I think that is our next question that we have, again, the 20 minutes for this, roughly around 15 to 20 minutes. What needs to be done to adapt to this uncertainty? How can global trade governance system, including WTO, what can they do to adapt to this unpredictability and make the system more predictable? That, I think, will be the one factor that will be shaping the long-lasting implications. If the system can adapt to it, if system can bring some mechanisms to be more predictable in these kind of shocks, so maybe the impact will be slightly less than expected. But if that unpredictability, uncertainty persists, there are huge implications. So the question I'm leaving with you, what can be done? How can this global trade governance system adapt to this unpredictability and uncertainty? I'll take one comment from there, but then I'll go more to those who haven't spoken in the last round. But as you raised first hand, Sabar Saab, if you can comment, please.
Thank you very much. I say in this era, we need to fix our national economy. I'm not talking about only about Pakistan, but also about other developments.
But exactly, we need to.
Exactly, I come to it. So I'm not talking about the Pakistan, but also from the other developing country perspective. If you look for the Pakistan, we need to revisit our tariff structure. And why it is important to think about it. If we ignore about the tariff, what the tool to bridge the trade deficit? There is only one tool, which is devaluation, the depreciation of the country. We experienced a lot of depreciation in the country, but we never came out in the positive zone, and we are not able to push our export. And why it is so? Because there's the primary resources got very expensive. Take the example of energy and other inputs, which we are using for the export. It got costlier. And then that's why we are not able to push further. So what we can do, use tariff, first of all, for our own correction. Second, we also need to, so we revisit, we should think in a statistic way. What need to done with our own tariff structure, for which country or which good we need to think tariff as strategically. Second, I also think about the other institutional failure in the country, which is not bringing the export into upside. I'm from the Karachi, and in Karachi we talk a lot about export textile city or other export processing zone. They never operationalized perfectly. They didn't build in that way, and there is having the advantage of the sea for the Karachi and other coastal area. We are not able to build the industry which is more competitive, which has low traveling costs. If you are building this industry on the upper side and you are transporting without train through the road transport, which is very expensive, and you have the higher fuel prices, then you can't build the competitiveness. So my thinking is to look your institutional mechanism, you look your tariff mechanism, you rethink all these things. Okay, what can be done and what lesson we learn from the globalization. So it is not, and then after having our national strategy, then we look for the regional partners, and then we club and we move jointly.
Thank you. I think the message coming from Sabir is always that take this as an opportunity. So this is a good one. So I'll be coming on these three top on the left row. So if you can come in, please. You can introduce also in the.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Zubia Zubair, and I've been associated with SARC, SWEC, namely SARC Women Entrepreneurs Council, for some time. And by profession, I'm a therapist and a psychologist. So I was just listening to all the comments, and I agree with some of my colleagues and some very good, I think, input. I would like to start with, every difficulty also gives birth to some kind of opportunity. So having said that, a lot of people mentioned here that, regional trade bodies and regional, maybe dialogue and all that. We already have some of those. So instead of reinventing the wheel, I think I will agree with my colleague who just spoke that maybe we need to just revamp them, like, SARC, ASEAN and all these. And because most of them are a victim of politics in our country, especially in this region, which is very politically volatile. So I would just like to say maybe we can also include both public and private sectors in these dialogues in future. I don't know if there's any people from Chambers, FPCCI or anyone.
We have.
Okay, great. So, maybe that.
I'll be coming to Aptama now.
Yeah, so maybe that will also increase. And along with that, I want to mention one more less visible crisis as a result of all these tariffs and, trade difficulties and etc., which is the mental health impact of all of these on not only the local people, but internationally also. Because of course, if supply chain is disrupted, production is disrupted,
Yes.
Everything gets affected. Instability causes insecurity, and insecurity causes a lot of mental health issues.
I think this is.
Thank you.
Thank you for zooming in, bringing the worker. In this entire discussion, we were too macro, and thank you bringing this. And Professor, if you have to add anything on the what is Turkey doing and thinking in terms of. So if you can come in. Meantime, I'll take Strepsil. I've been in Lahore, and if anybody wanted to join, please welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Javed. Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. My name is Talha Yalta. I'm a professor of economics from TOBB University of Economics and Technology from Ankara and Turkey. These are all, very important discussions, and we are really gaining lots of insight here. And of course, this new power play started by the US. Everybody is in this room is agreeing with that. It's not sustainable. It is just surviving right now because of the great power inertia and their industry lobbies and trade deficits. So it is not sustainable, but this doesn't mean that we will go back to the old order. So that's the biggest problem here. We can talk about WTO, but WTO has weakened, and now it is still the only regional global institution with the arbitration and predictability capability, but it's weakened. So we can do things like advocate for reactivation of its appellate bodies or advocate for greater voice for developing countries, but I don't think it's going to work because the system, the institution was initially created by the big powers to protect the old order. Now the order has changed. So there's going to be a new order. So I don't think WTO is going to be a big part of the solution. So what can be done? First of all, I mean, some of the speakers also mentioned this, but the biggest thing is to decrease the structural vulnerabilities of the countries. I mean, this is the hard truth. For Pakistan, I mean, for Pakistan, real protection is not at the border. It is at the level for skills, standards, new technologies, artificial intelligence, software, other things, skills. So I want to introduce a concept which is now becoming more and more important in economics, which is economic complexity. I have a paper on economic complexity, and it's getting lots of citations. It is even cited by the person who created this concept. And we talked about the determinants of economic complexity. And when we look at the countries, economic complexity, by the way, is a basic topic. It's not very difficult, actually. It just measures each country. It looks at each country and how many countries are you exporting and how many countries are you importing from. If you can export lots of things to lots of countries and then also import lots of things and not from lots of them, your economy is complex. Now, at the top of the list is Singapore, Japan, Switzerland, right? So Japan did not become ranked at the top by winning every tariff argument, right? So far, they created they improved their economy, and then that is how they escaped low-value exports. When we look at the list, I mean Japan, right? They are exporting everything from cars to Seiko watches to PlayStations, and then to be able to do that, they have to import raw materials. So they are at the top. Turkey is ranked at 42. India is 44. Right now, Pakistan is ranked right now as 99th more complex economy. Even Uganda is 97. Okay, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's not too bad news because Russia is 100. Why? Why? Because their economy is so basic. They just export oil and natural gas. I mean, they are earning money, yes, but eventually they will run out of it, and the economy is changing. Renewable energy. We talked about it yesterday. So they're gonna go down. I mean, it's not sustainable for them. So you have to think about the ways to do it sustainably and future-proof in a way, right? So yeah, it is how you develop the country with education, long-term policies. It's nothing easy answer for the short run. But for the medium run, maybe I can just mention some of the things which are already.
You can come in next, where we will be collecting all recommendations.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
But I liked your way. You bring hope and despair in one sentence. I mean, it's not sustainable, but we are not going back to the old normal. I really liked it. Pakistan is 99th. Uganda is 97th. But don't worry, Russia is 17th. I liked your style. But I think the key line that's coming, this period or this kind of situation may not be sustainable, as Dr. Manzoor Saab also added. But I think this is the risk that we will not going to go back to the previous normal before it was. Thank you so much. So if you can come this comment, and then I'll be coming to Talpur Saab, then to you, then to Dr. Manzoor Saab, then to Aptama, and then to Safdar Sahil Saab and Zainab. So these are 6 comments I'll be collecting in this round, and then we'll move into last round. So please, those who haven't spoken so far, prepare your thoughts for the last session.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, moderator. And thank you also for raising and highlighting the voice of women in your speech in the first day. You are the very few people who actually touched upon women who are very much affected. Thank you to my colleagues who've raised on the mental health issues. So I wanted to bring a different perspective here, where everybody's talking about the disorder, and talking about macro situations. But ultimately, what happens with all these policies is it has implications on people. And within the people, I wanted to take the side of women entrepreneurs, particularly, and women workers and women consumers. So women in all these three roles are, the implications that they have been facing because of this tariff uncertainty is huge. And these are basically on female intensive industries on which majority of our economic sectors rely on. So I think, looking at all of these implications, what is it that we can do within the country, and what is the way forward? There could be some major recommendations on the macro level, but we have seen in the world that there are free trade agreements that have worked. And perhaps that is the way they forward also. And within that, if we wanted to include a gender dimension to free trade agreements, it is very much possible. So I think it's very much high time that countries like Pakistan, Nepal, and other countries in South Asia come up, like countries like Canada that have free trade agreements with Israel, for example. And there are various ways in which you can do that also. And I just wanted to stress upon that so that it can be taken on board if you are coming up with new free trade agreements. One is you can include a separate standard chapters, like the way that I said Canada and Chile and Canada and Israel have on the free trade agreements. The other is you can mainstream the gender-related provisions within the free trade agreements so that they are not missed out. And within the gender-related provisions, you need to include the people with disabilities, you need to include people from the rural areas, and I think that intersectionality perspective must be there. Otherwise, we are again going to be, going back to the same way in which the world was going ahead. Aspirational language, particularly in the provisions, I think that sets a political tone, and I think it's good to have that. And also you can refer to these various international instruments where the FTAs do recommend that, and some of them are the UN CEDAW conventions that looks on gender equality, or the ILO conventions that looks at equal pay and non-discrimination. So these are some of the things. But the other way, one more thing that I wanted to add is also everybody's talking about this tariff, and those are particularly on products, right? And which is so scared because we know that the WTO is basically a toothless tiger right now, but the tiger is still there. So I think there is hope, as my colleague also said. But what about the export of services? And I just wanted to end there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Tariff sir, please.
Thank you very much, Sir. Resettle it, take it back towards the sustainability. However, every happening has some takeaways. I believe that there should be a collective bargaining on different forums like SARC, like ECO, with the world, with the US, and this got not individually for resettling all these things. And number two, there should be a diversification of markets. We should also think in that perspective, and especially the developing countries should diversify their markets. My third recommendation would be that WTO should not act as a dispute settlement body only. It should rectify all these issues, and equal playing field should be resettled, like to stabilize in the stabilization forum. It should be a stabilization forum now. Thank you.
If I can come on this side table, and then I'll be coming also to you. Jabbar Sahab, also I can come to you once, if I can collect comments from this side. This table has been silent. So, Manzoor Sahab, if you can, and particularly on what needs to be done to absorb that uncertainty and bring predictability back.
Okay, I think the future is what has been already happening for the last 3 decades, I should say. I mean, the countries they have been regionalizing. You see the big EU bloc, and you see here ASEAN Pacific, and then TTP, etc. So that is, and now more and more countries after this, what's happening US, they're realizing that as an individual they cannot stand up to US. So they're asking to join these blocs. Already, I think Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have asked to join RCEP, Regional Cooperation for Economic Partnership. And similarly, Indonesia, Philippines, etc., some others have joined that Trans-Pacific. So unfortunately, Pakistan is not it was, tried to be a part of SEFTA, but SEFTA never worked because we have too many politics. We have to, because this big Asian Pacific bloc, this is the biggest trading bloc, is RCEPA, the regional cooperation. Pakistan should try to join it. And so this is one way that countries become stronger through integrating. And one or two questions that I like to answer that it kind of came out that, okay, US was pushed into importing and others were exporting. It was never like that. US had the upper hand, but they realized that they were making far more money. They have become far more prosperous by getting into services. Instead of, say, producing the shoes themselves, they said, okay, we'll develop this brand Nike and let other countries make. I mean, this iPhone, okay, the idea come up, but they said, let China make, others make, and they made good money. That's why the US is number one, economy in the world. And somehow, no matter how much tariff they put, etc., I cannot see them making shoes and clothes, etc. The society has moved on, and they're still the number one. So, and the third point, my friend Ashfaq, I always have some discussion with him about hyperglobalization. There are countries like Pakistan who looked at what Professor Chang is saying, Stiglitz is saying, and Tony Roderick is saying, and so we stayed out. We should not be a part of. There are many other countries like Turkey, like China, like others. They said, this is the moment. Get into hyperglobalization. That's why you'll progress. Pakistan kept its tariff and increased from 2008 onwards. It put regulatory duties and then additional duties and then just hide itself. Let's listen to Professor Chang. But fortunately, this year, the thing has started changing. In Pakistan, we have started on a 5-year tariff reform program. So we will be, hopefully, if this can continue, because there's a lot of opposition, in 5 years, we'll have about average as East Asian countries, about the same level. So I think stop here.
Thank you, sir. If I can come to colleague from Ahmedabad, then coming to so.
So thank you so much. Just very brief. I think everything has been covered. What can be done in one word? Trade diplomacy. I'm an advocate of trade diplomacy, to be very honest. I think it should be a continuous process. It should not be triggered in cases of an exogenous shock, and it should never end. At the very moment, you see that this 19% additional tariff, I would say it's not a tariff, it's an additional tariff on Pakistan's exports. This has created a sense in a lot of Pakistani businesses that no market is sustainable, no market is dependable, and that's what has been happening. I would try to pull out a very realistic picture. What do we have at the moment to offer? We have a basket of goods which is comprising 55% of textile and apparel. Our 50% of exports are destined to just 3 countries, EU27 as a bloc, USA and UK. That's it. That's our entire trade profile. So my colleague from Nepal, he was talking about the US GSP. A lot of analysts and economists were not aware of the fact that Pakistan was enjoying the US GSP, but I would remove the word enjoying because unlike Nepal, a very minimal preferential advantage was given to Pakistan. It was just 1.5% of the total value added exports we were sending to the US. And our majority of the exports are value added. So what else do we have? Now let's come to the US GSP. The grounds are shaking. We are not sure whether the GSP Plus will be suspended or what is the fate of the GSP Plus. Again, coming back to the point, we do not have a lot to offer. So the realistic thing is negotiations. I think that's where the trade diplomacy comes into play, and Pakistan should be, as people were discussing here about the regional diplomacy and regional blocs. I'm really sorry, I'm a bit pessimistic about that because being located right next to India does not offer a lot of to Pakistan to collectively bargain. I think Pakistan's individual foreign policy, a neutral, a balanced foreign policy towards all these superpowers and trading partners will benefit it the most.
Thank you. Dr. South, if you can come, and I'm coming to you.
This is Saud Ahmed Khan from Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. I'll just keep we need to keep our house in order. We are not. Just taking numbers from Professor was just said, 99th in complex in economic complexity index. We are 65th in exports, 49th in imports. We are exporting about 70% of our exports to only 12 countries, and we are talking about multilateralism and all that stuff. We have issues of policy inconsistency. We have issues of protectionist pressure without, like, there are some industries and they definitely weaken our export competitiveness. Revenue dependence, we are using the Tariff Act as a fiscal tool. These are our issues. So we need to keep our house in order, first of all, and then we can talk about like multilateralism or bilateralism. I don't think it's as far as the Pakistan is concerned, it's not about like winning this race or losing this race. We are not part of this race. These are my comments. So I would like someone to add in these things.
Thank you. So if I can go on this side of table, please. You can mic, please.
Thank you. Definitely, I mean, I agree with the previous speakers. But what I think that, I mean, this tit for tat approach, the reciprocity, that is not going to remain for a long. There's no doubt on that, because the interconnection that we are seeing in the whole production system, they have to bear the cost for that also in this system. So there is uncertainty on that. It will not remain that much in, but it has given a chance to think about our own policy. Because if you see why we are not having a big high share in the regional trade, I was just going through one of the costs we are bearing. So what I found that, I mean, just today, I was browsing that cost that was calculated by World Bank and SCAP, actually, UNISCAP, the trade cost among the regional trade. I saw that, I mean, the cost of trade cost of Nepal with USA is just 250% besides the tariff. See? But same kind of, I mean, cost is 359% with the Pakistan. Just imagine, if you go through the agriculture product, it is only 387% with the US, but for Pakistan, it is 896%. It is calculated by, I mean, UNISCAP and World Bank. So that is a very, I mean, we have to think on that. Why this happening? Why our logistic cost, trade cost is high? We have to decrease that. Then only we can play in the regional trade. So that is the one thing that I want to highlight here. Besides, I'm just thinking about the total consumption share in the world market. Definitely, at the present situation, the share of North America is very high. It's around, it was 26% during the 90s, but it is 22% in during the in 2023 figure, isn't it? But it is going to decrease very soon. I mean, this study was done by McKinley Institute, and it is going to be 17% within the 20 years. But the share of other countries is increasing very high. Just like India, it was 4% in 97, it is 99% presently, but it is going to be 16% very soon. China is 13% now. And even the emerging Asian countries, it is 10% now, it is going to be 15%. Why you are not going to tap that market? Because their income level is becoming very high, increasing very rapidly. And we have to think on that line. That is the thing I'm thinking.
Thank you. If I can also, we can have a mic at the back, and we have a colleague. If you can come in, please. I think you have to press a button. You can come here. I mean, we are giving you now a chair of Joint Chief Economist.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be invited to participate. My name is Louis. I'm the senior economist at the British High Commission. I'll just make a couple of observations. I mean, someone mentioned geoeconomics. I think the UK's geoeconomic strategy here in Pakistan is really quite simple. It's really that we want Pakistan to succeed, and we've been investing for many decades now to try and help that. So I agree, it's a complex global picture, and the UK is grappling with it as well as Pakistan. But in terms of our relationship with Pakistan, I think it's really quite simple. There's three aspects I'd like to touch upon around the UK and Pakistan's trade relationship. I think firstly, I think you made a really good point around the uncertainty around global markets. Proud to say that the UK, I think, is a dependable market. You know, our access to the developing countries trading scheme is not contingent on, you know, any obligations like the EU's GSP, and you know, we're not implementing tariffs as the US. So as far as the UK has a really quite significant market for those exports, I think we are quite dependable, and we're trying to improve that still with the new Pakistan-UK Trade Council. The secondly point I'll just make of three is that I think Pakistan is on the right track in many of its reforms. As many of you will know, the UK partners with Pakistan in many aspects of technical assistance and cooperation. And we see a lot of good progress. I think the Pakistan single window is doing excellent work. I think the tariff liberalization will be really important to help UK companies have the confidence to invest and perform value chains here in Pakistan. And I think the broader work that we've seen in terms of trying to diversify the tax base, regulatory reforms, where I saw the new pharmaceuticals organization yesterday saying that deregulation of pricing controls for non-essential medicines, regulatory reforms that have recently been introduced to helping them to export more. So I think Pakistan really just needs to stay the course on the reforms which are already underway, and the UK will continue to support that through our programming. The final point I'll mention is that we're designing a new package of cooperation to try and help companies here in Pakistan export across 4 sectors where we see the highest potential, which are pharmaceuticals, manufactured food and drink, engineering goods, and as mentioned, the IT sector. And the way we think can help this, and could be an idea for future sessions, is that actually the consulting sector in many countries is really key, because while the policy environment is of course critical, and it's the area that you know, we have the most control over, but it's consultancies that can help companies get a foothold in foreign markets. So we'll be looking to work by helping companies access consulting services where it can help them drive increased export.
Thank you. Thank you. If we can take Professor your comments, because we cut you in the last view, if you have anything to add here, and then I'll go on this side of table, and then we will sort of that way.
Okay, shortly add that as we have to look to the future, then the long run, of course, is difficult and it needs good planning, and it is easier. It's not easy to implement, but it is the real way to develop. And all parts of the government should focus on that really. But in the medium run, in the short run, of course, it's regionalism. I mean, if globalization doesn't work, you go back to regionalism. If regionalism doesn't work, you back to nationalism. If nationalism doesn't work, you back down to feudalism. I don't know. But here, regionalism is the way to go. And there are actually both Turkey and Pakistan has lots of they are inside this dense web of both regional and ideological clubs. You have the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, ACRC, but also there is also D8. I mean, D8 is like developing a Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, Egypt, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Nigeria. It's like Islamic ones. So these are all options, and I think it might be a good idea to focus on these in the.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm told that we have also raised hand, Professor Zhuang. We have online. Professor, sorry, I couldn't see on online. So Professor Zhang, if you can go ahead, please. Can you hear me, please? Yes, Professor, we can see you. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So, and I'm it's my honor here to be speaker here talking about today's topic. Thank you very much for your intention, for give me 10 minutes here. So, I heard our speakers and the comments. I think today's meeting is very useful, insightful for what's going on, most important issue for this world. So it's why I actually my speak I just finished it because I changed my idea because I get a lot of ideas from previous speakers. So I just want to talk about several points. Today we talk a lot about trade issue, economic issue, and just for China, US, even for the world, I don't think trade is a really issue. Trade issue is important, but not the most important issue. So many people like, specifically for American people, they like to talk about trade imbalance, but this issue, and Mr. Trump he like to say this everywhere as a pretext. Actually, the core issue not this one. The core issue is the distribution of profits within the existing global system. Frankly, who benefits more? Which country benefits more? Which group of people within a country benefits more? I think it's the issue within country and between country. So it's a vital question. So beneath it lies the foundational issue of technological competition. This issue drives wealth creation and the power to set rules. This issue will shape the ultimate global allocation of resources and profits. It's the most important issue. So just for China and the US, the trade issue, technological competition issue between two countries will determine the future international order and will determine who will correct these orders, these world's rules. So historically, US was dominate this process, but currently we are now living in a multipolar world. And with the future, there's many countries where growth, and this world will become much more diverse. I believe countries, even like Pakistan, will increasingly have a voice in the future world. So as the world's top two economies, competition between two countries is inevitable. So yet decoupling is also not workable, not feasible. Since the World War began in 2018, we can find the direct trade between China and US has declined a lot. But, I say but, indirect trade has risen very fast. So the mutual dependence remains strong between the countries. So this web of interactions is woven by countless individuals, enterprises, and consumers. It cannot be undone by any single national leaders. So it is very clear. Even American presidents, he want to manage issues, but he can't. He faces challenges from other countries, even from within America. And it's something we are seeing this. So this coexistence of competition and cooperation.
Sir, if we
Yeah.
can request you in 1 minute because we are
Okay.
3 minutes up already. So if you can
Okay,
conclude in 1
thank you.
minute, please.
Maybe
sorry
1
to
minute,
conclude.
okay.
My fault.
Yeah, okay. So this situation called existence, competition, and cooperation is poses the challenge for every country, to China and the US. As a final point, I disagree with the notion of deglobalization. I don't think it's true. Deglobalization is true just in some section of the world, for trade, for goods. But in another section, we can see a great progress of globalization, people to people through social media and driven by AI language model. So we have become a real single world in other section. So I think we still can do lots of issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I'll be taking just 2 more comments because we are above 4 minutes. but as we started roughly 10 minutes late, so we're taking 5 more minutes. I'll be taking 2 comments from Dr. Safdar Sohail, then to Dr. Manzoor, and then our concluding remarks. But in particular, if you can focus what needs to be done to make this global trade governance more predictable. I have just 7 minutes, including concluding remarks. So please structure your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. But you have also to excuse me because I'd leave immediately after making my comment. I'm sorry already. But I'll build on a very insightful remark by Dr. Ashfaq. The element of class. I remembered Andre Gunder Frank also, good old days. There is a news today that Tesla has agreed to the salary package for Elon Musk, which is $1 trillion. $1 trillion yearly salary package. And we know that how US is helping Starlinks through its geostrategic heft, the excess. Maharashtra, for example, day before has agreed to that. What I want to suggest here is that we normally, when we talk about global trade governance, we talk about goods only, but it's also about investment liberalization, services, and now increasingly importantly, technology. Now, technology in all of this is extremely important. Now, we have our honorable senior colleague, Dr. Manzoor here. He would know much more than me about WTO, but many observers think that the current DG WTO has shown her vulnerabilities not in this tariff crisis, much earlier also. I mean, she is, I don't know, correctly or wrongly accused of not defending adequately the interests of the group of 77 or developing countries. If you look at the investment facilitation for development agreement of WTO and look at the exceptions, and just remember that China is also supporting that agreement. So what are the options for the developing countries? Pakistan, like many other countries, is entering a new phase of deal making, which is much more risky given the play of forces. And our record is very poor in that sense that we liberalized our investment regime in a deal-making fashion. If you look at the mining contracts, if you look at financial sector liberalization, telecom liberalization, energy above all. So if you allow such deals to financialize, dollarize, and digitize your economy, you are weakening, you are liquidating your nation state. And it's basically what Ashfaq was referring to. It's class versus nation state also. And can the countries like Pakistan have such a state which can reduce at least the value hemorrhage of its natural and human resources abroad? And here I think our policy community has a lot to contribute.
Thank you. I'm sorry. We will be collecting your beautiful notes. All of our participants have written. Dipasab, if I can come to you, very quick recommendations. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. And I think since I have to also watch the watch. So
I'm sorry.
this topic of tariff turbulence, I must say, I would just think that if I had the choice, I would have written that Trump turbulence, you see. So we are all here discussing a scenario which is like a shock since this tariff economics has come into play, especially in respect of tariffs, you see. So what was said by Dr. Manzoor and also I think Dr. Safdar Sohail, multilateralism is now changing towards reciprocal or bilateral. But I think I would call it not that. It is more of the political nature and more of an interest of the way Trump economics would think about. So if you sell oil or if you buy oil, you have to pay 50% tariff. Though I'm not sympathizer to the sympathizer or against that in respect of India, but these are all political things. Having said so, I heard my Dr. Sabir is my friend, so everybody is my friend. I must say national accounts, domestic reforms, and so many things. You see. We have been talking all about these things on 10-year basis. You see, in the Planning Commission, Dr. Saab Hassan Iqbal gave, I fairly remember, 2025. Now there's another Chiodan and all that. So many things are going on for 10 years, 20 years. One of the discussion yesterday, I must say, said that, Keval, I'm hearing that 2035, 2040 and 2050, maybe I will not be alive. Probably I should not be privy in making that policy, wherein I will not be alive. You see, let the others take charge of that. But I will come quickly to that long-term impacts, you see. Now, if I can recall, I think your father was also our friend, you see, that liberals and classicals had a theory in terms of free trade economy, which post of Soviet Union, you see, now just recall the period post of Soviet Union, 89, say 90s, and then comes to 2000 and close when free trade regime was talk of the town, and probably we all had to follow that sort of pattern. Now, having said so, at that time, probably now quarter of a century has passed. Dr. Manzoor was our ambassador. I also used to visit, but from 1995, I was also in WTO affairs. I was a speaker in accession of China to WTO in 1999. How carefully China was proceeding with and how did they divide, I still remember. So these 25 years long-term settled issues, we are thinking that we have probably alternate option to go for national accounts, to go for reforms, to go for domestic, sort of adjustment. I would personally believe it is a Tom Cruise mission impossible.
Thank you.
At least.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I will just say only 2 minutes more, you see.
Sir, just if you can conclude
I
early.
personally believe is that
हमारा एक नया session start होना है, we are just waiting.
ठीक है, मैं
Please.
सिर्फ 1-2 मिनट बातें कर रहा हूँ.
If
मेरे अपने ख्याल
1
में
minute.
कि हाँ 1 minute है तो Dr. Manzoor probably is also steering our national, I must say, tariff policy. But I would just use another 30 seconds to say that maybe he and me should sit, Ministry of Commerce should sit. I think in Pakistan, the system of tariff itself is absolutely wrong. You at custom stages collect income tax, you at custom stages collect sales tax. Without producing anything, you are collecting that. So that simplified system, which I think he also believed much earlier when we used to discuss, we can discuss trilaterally or I don't know, quadrilaterally.
On the T, sir.
It will involve you also.
So
let me come to the end under the sanctions by you that I have.
Sir, thank you so much. I'm sorry. Perhaps last 30 seconds, if you have any broad recommendation. Great, this is the best. Next one to you.
2 or 3 points. One,
very quickly, sir.
Yeah, very quick. One, a lot of mention of WTO. WTO, we're misunderstanding some of us. It doesn't have any police or army, and so if a country doesn't want to do anything, there's nothing the WTO can do. It's just like WTO. If you look there, if you go to WTO, it's just like this room, another room, bigger room. They're just talking. It's that, it's nothing. Yes. In fact, when we the last rounds started, then one of the first statements the US guy said, it's now time for zero. All tariffs should be zero because that's what suited them. So they were pushing for this. And they, they were very happy when China came in because they could sell goods, etc. But I don't go into too much of that. The second thing is, I've already mentioned this, but just reiterate that regionalism, no matter where multilateralism goes, but regionalism is thriving. Pakistan should try to be a part of any big region like Regional Cooperation for Economic Partnership. Pakistan has zero regional, and Pakistan's bilateral are also meaningless. 2%, 3% coverage. Most countries bilateral FTAs, wherever Turkey signs, it covers more than 90% of trade, and wherever we sign, it's regionally. Pakistan and Turkey recently signed this agreement, and 2% tariff lines. This is not FTA, but anyway, because of our very high tariffs, that's what they. And my final point is that domestic reform is the prerequisite. And countries like Pakistan, which had not done it previously, and what they are doing now, they should.
Thank you. Sir, over to you, and we'll be really testing your skills.
Only 2-3 points quickly. One, as mentioned by Dr. Manzoor, that diversion of trade is obviously a way out of the situation to some extent. Regionalism is one facet of that. Second is that domestic reform, and you cannot come out of this rat hole by exporting your problems. You need to invest yourself. FDI is part of, in all developing countries, 5 to 6% of the GDP. The rest of the amount, the saving in the investment will come from within your own resources. So that is the way to go about it. I think
this is excellent. So this is excellent. We're really grateful. If we can have a group photo, I'm told that we need a compulsory group photo. And big thanks to all of you on behalf of SDPI, on behalf of all our partners, Allama Iqbal Open University, and other partners, to all of you. So I'm asked for a group photo. If you can come on this side, please, we can have a group photo. हाँ? बाहर लेना group photo कहाँ पे?